The maid hid her tears from the billionaire until his little son ran into her arms. The sound of shattering glass echoed through the cramped apartment, followed by words that cut deeper than any broken shard ever could. Useless. That's what you are, Emma. Completely useless. Emma Richardson stood frozen in the doorway of what used to be her bedroom, watching her husband, no, her soon-to-be ex-husband, throw another photo frame against the wall. Their wedding picture. The glass exploded into 1,000 pieces, just like her heart had been doing for the past 2 years. 3 years, Emma. 3 years of marriage, and what do I have to show for it? A wife who can't even give me a child. A wife who works as a maid because she couldn't finish college. A wife who... Stop. Her voice came out as barely a whisper, but something in it made Derek pause. Just stop, Derek. I'm done. She'd heard these words before, variations of them, at least. They'd become Derek's favorite weapon whenever he'd had too much to drink, whenever his own failures needed a scapegoat, whenever his fragile ego required someone to crush. But tonight was different. Tonight, Emma finally heard them for what they were, the desperate cruelty of a small man trying to make himself feel big. You're done. Derek laughed, a harsh sound that held no humor. You can't even do that right. Where are you going to go? Who's going to want you? Emma grabbed the duffel bag she'd packed that morning, the one she'd hidden in the hall closet, waiting for the courage to use it. She'd been planning this moment for weeks, saving every dollar she could from her housekeeping jobs, researching apartments she might afford, building up the strength to finally leave. Anywhere but here, she said, shouldering past him toward the door. His hand caught her wrist, fingers digging in hard enough to bruise. You walk out that door, and you get nothing. You hear me? Nothing. Emma met his eyes, seeing the panic beneath the anger. He'd always needed someone to belittle, someone to make him feel superior. Without her, he'd have to face the truth about himself. I already have nothing, Derek. That's the point. She pulled free and walked out, closing the door on 3 years of diminishing returns, of watching herself shrink to fit his idea of who she should be, of forgetting who she'd been before she'd mistaken his attention for love. The night air hit her face like a baptism. Emma made it to the end of the block before her legs gave out. She sank onto a bus stop bench, the duffel bag falling to her feet, and finally let herself cry, great, heaving sobs that shook her entire body. 27 years old, and she felt ancient, broken, used up, useless. The word echoed in her head, Derek's voice mixing with her father's voice from years ago, with her own voice during the darkest moments of insomnia. She'd tried so hard to prove them wrong, to be enough, to do everything right, and she'd still ended up here, alone on a street corner with everything she owned in a single bag. Her phone buzzed. A text from her best friend, Maya. Spare room is ready whenever you are. No rush. No judgment. Just love. Emma's tears came harder, but these were different. These were grateful tears, tears that washed away the poison Derek had spent years dripping into her soul. She typed back with trembling fingers. On my way. 3 bus rides later, Emma stood in Maya's doorway, mascara streaked and exhausted. Maya took one look at her and pulled her into a fierce hug. You did it, Maya whispered. You finally did it. I'm so proud of you. I feel like I'm dying, Emma admitted. I know, but you're not. You're just being reborn. It always feels like dying first. That night, lying in Maya's spare bedroom with its cheerful yellow walls and the sound of city traffic humming outside, Emma made herself a promise. She would rebuild. She didn't know how yet, didn't know what shape her life would take, but she would do it. She would prove to herself, not to Derek, not to anyone else, but to herself, that she wasn't useless. She was 27. She was starting over. And she was terrified. But she was also, for the first time in years, free. The next morning, Emma updated her resume and sent it to every housekeeping agency in the city. She'd been working for a small company that barely paid minimum wage, but Maya had told her about premium agencies that served the wealthy neighborhoods, places that paid 3 times as much and actually offered benefits. You're too good for scraping by, Maya had said. You're detailed, reliable, and you care about doing things right. Those rich people will be lucky to have you. Emma wasn't so sure about that, but she was sure about one thing. She needed the money if she was ever going to get her own place, go back to school, build the life she deferred for Derek's dreams. 1 week later, her phone rang with an offer that would change everything. Ms. Richardson? This is Patricia from Elite Home Services. We have a client requesting a full-time housekeeper for his home in Riverside Hills. The position includes health insurance, paid time off, and the salary is. The number Patricia quoted made Emma's heart skip. And the client is looking for someone to start immediately. Would you be available for an interview tomorrow? Emma looked around Maya's spare bedroom. At the duffel bag she still hadn't fully unpacked, at the life she was trying to piece back together from fragments. Yes, she said, her voice steady despite her racing heart. I'm available. She had no idea that saying yes to this job meant saying yes to a man named Alexander Thorne, or to his 3-year-old son, Oliver, who was about to teach her that broken hearts could heal, and that sometimes love arrived exactly when you stopped looking for it. The gates of the Thorne estate opened with a quiet electronic hum, revealing a driveway that curved through manicured gardens like a ribbon through a gift box. Emma gripped the steering wheel of her borrowed car, Maya's ancient Honda, and tried to calm her racing heart. The mansion appeared gradually through the trees, all glass and stone and sharp modern angles, somehow both imposing and elegant. It was the kind of house she'd only seen in magazines, the kind that whispered of a life so far removed from her own that it might as well have been on another planet. Emma parked in the circular drive, checked her reflection in the rearview mirror, professional, put together, competent, and stepped out into a world where even the air smelled expensive. Patricia from the agency had briefed her. Alexander Thorne, 35, tech entrepreneur, divorced, sole custody of a son. The previous housekeeper had retired after 15 years, and Mr. Thorne was particular about finding the right replacement. He needed someone trustworthy, discreet, and good with children. He's not difficult, Patricia had assured her. Just private. He works from home mostly designing software or something brilliant I don't understand. The house runs like a machine, and he wants someone who can help keep it that way without disrupting his routine or his son's life. The front door opened before Emma could ring the bell. A woman in her 60s with silver hair and kind eyes smiled warmly. You must be Emma. I'm Margaret, Mr. Thorne's assistant.
Come in, come in.
He's just finishing a call. The interior was exactly what Emma expected. Soaring ceilings, minimalist furniture, art that probably cost more than she'd earn in a decade. But there were also unexpected touches. A child's drawing taped to the refrigerator, colorful toys in a basket by the sofa, a blanket fort partially constructed in one corner of the vast living room. Evidence of a child. Evidence of life. Mr. Thorne will see you in his office, Margaret said, leading Emma down a hallway lined with photographs. Emma caught glimpses of a small boy with dark curls and his father's serious eyes, both of them captured in moments of rare laughter. Alexander Thorne stood when she entered, extending his hand across a desk that probably cost more than her car. He was tall, lean, dressed in the casual uniform of the tech wealthy, dark jeans, crisp white shirt, no tie. But it was his eyes that caught Emma, gray, intelligent, and carrying a weariness that money clearly couldn't fix. Ms. Richardson, thank you for coming. His handshake was firm but brief, and Emma noticed he pulled back quickly, as if he too had learned to be careful about touch, about trust, about letting people too close. Thank you for the opportunity, Mr. Thorne. He gestured to a chair, and the interview began. It was unlike any job interview Emma had experienced. Less interrogation, more conversation. He asked about her experience, yes, but also about her philosophy on creating a home environment, her thoughts on structure versus flexibility, her comfort level with unpredictability. Oliver is 3, Alexander said, and something in his voice softened imperceptibly. He's bright, curious, and sometimes gets overwhelmed. We have a nanny who handles his primary care and education, but I need someone who understands that a house with a toddler is never going to be perfectly organized. Someone who can roll with the chaos. I understand, Emma said, and she found herself being honest in a way she rarely was in interviews. A home should be clean and organized, but it should also be lived in, especially by a child. There's a difference between maintaining a space and suffocating it. Something flickered in Alexander's eyes. Approval, maybe, or recognition. Patricia mentioned you recently ended a marriage. Emma's breath caught. She hadn't known that would be in her file, though she supposed it made sense for background checks. Yes, she said simply, refusing to elaborate, refusing to carry Derek's shame into this new space. I'm divorced as well, Alexander said, and it wasn't small talk. It was an offering. An acknowledgement of shared experience. 2 years now. He paused, seeming to weigh his words. An adjustment. It is, Emma agreed quietly. The moment stretched between them, not uncomfortable but profound. Two people who'd survived the death of their marriages, sitting in a beautiful house that money had built but couldn't fill. When could you start? Alexander asked. Emma blinked. You're offering me the position? Unless you'd rather not take it.
No, yes.
I'd be honored. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. Wait until you meet Oliver properly. He's the real judge of character around here. Alexander stood, and Emma followed him through the house to a sunlit playroom where a small boy sat surrounded by building blocks, constructing what appeared to be an elaborate castle. A woman in her 40s, the nanny Emma assumed, looked up from where she was reading nearby. Oliver, Alexander said gently, kneeling to his son's level. This is Emma. She's going to be helping take care of her house. The boy looked up, and Emma's breath caught. He had his father's serious gray eyes, but they were huge in his small face, framed by unruly dark curls. He studied her with an intensity that seemed far too ancient for 3 years old. Hi, Oliver, Emma said, kneeling as well. That's an impressive castle you're building. Oliver considered her for a long moment, then held up a blue block. This is the tower where the dragon sleeps. That's a good place for a dragon, Emma said seriously. High up, so he can see everything. The boy's face transformed with a smile that could have powered the sun. You understand dragons. I try to, Emma said, and she found herself smiling back, something unlocking in her chest. She can stay, Oliver announced to his father, as if the decision had always been his to make. Alexander's laugh was surprised and genuine. Well, that's settled then. Emma started the following Monday, and within a week, she'd fallen into the rhythm of the house. She arrived at 7 each morning, began with the kitchen and main living spaces, worked her way through the house with a thoroughness that satisfied her and apparently impressed Alexander, who occasionally emerged from his office to observe her work with quiet approval. But it was the moments with Oliver that began to heal something in Emma she hadn't realized was broken. The boy was like a small sun, bright, warm, demanding attention in the best way. He'd appear while she was cleaning, asking questions, showing her drawings, insisting she admire his latest creation. Emma found herself looking forward to these interruptions, to the way Oliver's presence transformed the mansion from a showpiece into a home. You're good with him, the nanny Susan observed one afternoon. He doesn't warm up to people easily. Took him 3 months to really talk to me. Emma felt absurdly pleased by this, as if Oliver's trust was a prize she'd won. But she was careful, so careful, to maintain professional boundaries. She cleaned, she organized, she helped with meals and laundry and the 1,000 small tasks that kept a household running. She was polite but distant with Alexander, who seemed to prefer it that way, often buried in his work, emerging only for meals with Oliver or the occasional quiet conversation about household needs. It was a good job. A great job. And Emma was determined not to mess it up by catching feelings for her employer or getting too attached to his son. She'd learned her lesson about building her life around other people's needs. This time, she was building for herself. But the heart, Emma would soon learn, doesn't always consult the brain before making its choices. 3 months into working at the Thorne Mansion, Emma received the envelope. It was waiting in her mailbox at Maya's apartment, where she still lived, saving every penny she could for her own place, bearing a law firm's return address. Her hands shook as she opened it. Divorce papers. Final and official. Emma Richardson and Derek Richardson were no longer married. She should have felt relieved. Triumphant even. This was what she'd wanted, what she'd fought for. Freedom. A clean break. The legal end to a relationship that had died long before she'd walked out the door. Instead, she felt hollowed out. That morning, she drove to the Thorne mansion on autopilot, the papers still in her bag, Derek's final text burning in her mind. Hope you're happy now. You threw away everything for nothing. Emma parked in her usual spot, took 3 deep breaths the way her therapist had taught her, and forced herself to walk through the door with a smile. Morning, Emma. Oliver's voice rang out from the breakfast table, where he was enthusiastically smearing jam across his toast and, from the looks of it, across most of his face as well. Good morning, Oliver. Her voice sounded almost normal. Almost. Alexander glanced up from his laptop, and something in his expression sharpened. He was watching her with those observant gray eyes, and Emma had the uncomfortable feeling that he could see straight through her carefully constructed composure. Coffee's fresh, he said simply, then returned to his screen. Emma poured herself a cup with hands that only trembled slightly and began her usual morning routine, clearing breakfast dishes, wiping down counters, restoring order to the beautiful kitchen that Oliver's enthusiastic living constantly disrupted. She could do this. She could hold it together for one day. She just needed to get through the day. But the universe, it seemed, had other plans. It started with a call from her lawyer at noon, informing her that Derek was contesting the division of assets, trying to claim half of money Emma had inherited from her grandmother before they'd even met. Then her car, Maya's car, began making an ominous rattling sound on her lunch break. Then she dropped her phone, cracking the screen. Small things. Manageable things. But they piled up like weights, each one pressing harder on the fragile dam she'd built to contain her emotions. By 3 o'clock, Emma was cleaning Alexander's office. He'd stepped out for a call, when she noticed the photograph on his desk. Alexander and Oliver, younger, maybe a year ago. But there was a woman in the photo too, beautiful and blonde, smiling at the camera while Alexander and Oliver looked at each other. His ex-wife. Oliver's mother. Emma's hand reached for the frame without thinking, and she found herself staring at this family that had broken apart, this evidence that even wealth and success and beautiful homes couldn't protect people from pain. The frame slipped from her fingers. It didn't break, landed on the plush carpet with barely a sound, but Emma's composure finally, completely shattered. She sank into Alexander's desk chair and buried her face in her hands, all the tears she'd been holding back for weeks suddenly unstoppable. Great, gasping sobs that shook her entire body, the kind of crying that hurt, that purged, that refused to be contained or controlled. She cried for her failed marriage, for the years she'd wasted trying to be enough for someone who would never be satisfied, for the dreams she'd deferred and the confidence she'd lost and the version of herself she'd left behind in that cramped apartment with Derek's cruel words still echoing off the walls. She cried for being 27 and divorced and living in her best friend's spare room with everything she owned in a duffel bag. She cried for the babies she and Derek never had, for the family she'd imagined that would never exist, for all the futures that had died before they could be born. And she cried because she was tired, so tired, of being strong, of rebuilding, of pretending she wasn't terrified that maybe Derek was right, maybe she was useless, maybe she'd always be. Emma? The small voice cut through her tears like a bell. Emma's head snapped up. Oliver stood in the doorway, his toy dinosaur clutched in one hand, his gray eyes wide with concern. Susan hovered behind him, looking apologetic and uncertain. I'm sorry, Emma gasped, frantically wiping at her face. I'm so sorry, I didn't mean to. Oliver, I'm okay, But Oliver was already moving, his small legs carrying him across the room with surprising speed. He climbed onto her lap, something he'd never done before, and wrapped his little arms around her neck with fierce determination. Don't be sad, he whispered against her shoulder. Please don't be sad. Emma's tears came harder, but different now. She held this small boy who barely knew her, who owed her nothing, who had somehow sensed her pain and decided to do something about it with a pure, uncomplicated compassion that only children possess. "It's okay to cry," Oliver said, patting her back the way she'd seen Alexander comfort him after nightmares. "Daddy says sometimes our feelings are too big for our bodies and they have to come out." Emma couldn't speak, could only hold him and cry and feel something in her chest crack open, not breaking, but breaking through, like spring ice on a frozen lake, making way for something new. "What's going on?" Alexander's voice came from the doorway, sharp with alarm. Emma looked up to see him frozen there, taking in the scene, his son in his housekeeper's arms, both of them in his office, Emma's face blotchy and wet with tears. "I'm so sorry," Emma managed. I'll go." But Oliver tightened his grip around her neck.
No.
"Emma is sad, and she needs hugs. Like when I'm sad." Alexander's expression softened. He crossed the room and crouched beside his desk chair, putting himself at eye level with both of them. "Oliver's right," he said quietly. "If you need a minute, take it. The house can wait." "I'm fine," Emma lied, then laughed wetly at the absurdity of the lie while sitting in her employer's office, crying, with his son in her lap. "Okay, I'm not fine. But I will be. Today has been." "You don't have to explain," Alexander said, and there was such kindness in his voice that Emma almost started crying again. "But if you want to, I'm listening. And Oliver, apparently, has decided he's staying." Oliver nodded seriously against Emma's shoulder. "I'm helping." "You are," Emma whispered, pressing a kiss to his curls without thinking. "You really are, sweet boy." She expected Oliver to pull away. He was particular about affection. Susan had warned her, cautious about physical touch since his mother left. But instead, he burrowed closer, and Emma felt something shift in the universe. "My divorce was finalized today," she heard herself say, the words tumbling out before she could stop them. "And I know I should be happy, I know it's what I wanted, but I just feel like a failure," Alexander finished quietly. "Like you spent years building something that turned out to be built on sand. Like you can't trust your own judgment anymore. Like everyone who looks at you can see exactly how badly you messed up." Emma stared at him.
Yes, exactly that.
"I know," Alexander said. "I've been there. 2 years ago, sitting in my lawyer's office, signing papers that ended my marriage. Feeling like the biggest fool in the world for not seeing it coming. For choosing wrong. For failing at the most important thing." "But you have Oliver," Emma said. "That wasn't a failure." "No," Alexander agreed, his hand coming to rest on his son's back. "He's the only thing I got right. But that doesn't mean the rest didn't hurt. That doesn't mean I didn't spend months wondering if I'd ever trust my own heart again." Oliver lifted his head, looking between them with those wise, ancient eyes. "You're both too sad. We need ice cream." "Despite everything," Emma laughed. "Ice cream?" "Ice cream fixes things," Oliver said with absolute certainty. "Daddy says so." "I have been known to advocate for the healing properties of ice cream," Alexander admitted, and for the first time since she'd met him, Emma saw a real smile cross his face, not the polite professional expression, but something genuine and warm and devastating. "I should get back to work," Emma said, but she made no move to put Oliver down. "Or," Alexander said slowly, "you could take the rest of the day off. Come back tomorrow when you're feeling steadier." "I can't just." "You can. I'm your employer, and I'm telling you to take care of yourself. The house will survive." Emma looked at Oliver, who was watching her with such open concern that her heart ached. "Will you be okay if I go?" "Only if you promise to come back," Oliver said seriously. "Promise." "I promise." Oliver held out his tiny pinky finger, and Emma linked hers with it, sealing the deal. "But first ice cream," Oliver insisted. "We all need ice cream." And that's how Emma found herself in the Thorne Mansion's gourmet kitchen, eating chocolate chip ice cream straight from the container with a billionaire and his 3-year-old son, talking about divorce and heartbreak and the strange, painful process of rebuilding your life from scratch. It wasn't professional. It wasn't appropriate. It definitely wasn't what Elite Home Services had in mind when they placed her here. But it was real. And it was exactly what Emma needed. "Thank you," she said softly as she finally prepared to leave. Properly leave this time. Both of you. For not making me feel useless? Alexander supplied, and Emma's breath caught. Had she said that word out loud? You're not, Emma. Whatever your ex-husband said to you, whatever you're telling yourself, you're not useless. You're here doing the work, showing up every day, rebuilding. That takes more strength than most people ever have to find. Emma nodded, not trusting herself to speak. At the door, Oliver crashed into her legs one more time, hugging her fiercely. See you tomorrow, Emma. See you tomorrow, Oliver. That night, lying in Maya's spare room, Emma thought about small boys with big hearts, about billionaires who understood heartbreak, about unexpected kindness in beautiful houses. And for the first time since leaving Derek, she felt something other than fear about the future. She felt hope. The weeks after Emma's breakdown in Alexander's office brought a subtle shift in the atmosphere of the Thorne mansion. Nothing dramatic, nothing that could be clearly defined, but everything felt different. Softer, somehow. More human. Alexander started joining her for coffee in the mornings, the two of them sharing quiet conversation before Oliver's boundless energy descended on the day. They talked about safe things at first, the house, the weather, Oliver's latest developmental leaps, but gradually, carefully, they began to share pieces of themselves. Emma learned that Alexander had built his software company from nothing, working 18-hour days for years before selling it for an amount that made her dizzy to contemplate. That he'd met his ex-wife, Caroline, at a tech conference, and they'd bonded over ambition and vision and the belief that they could conquer the world together. What happened? Emma asked one morning, then immediately regretted the question. Sorry, that's too personal. No, it's okay. Alexander stared into his coffee as if it held answers. We grew apart. Or maybe we were never really together in the way that mattered. She wanted the lifestyle, the houses, the travel, the status. I wanted a family. When Oliver came, she tried. God, she tried. But motherhood didn't fit the version of herself she'd built. She felt trapped, resentful. That must have been so hard. The hardest part was watching her try to force herself to be something she wasn't. I'd done enough of that in my own childhood, trying to fit into my father's vision of who I should be. I couldn't stand watching her do the same thing. He looked up, his gray eyes troubled. So, I let her go. Gave her the out she needed. She sees Oliver twice a month, and she's better with him now that she doesn't have to pretend to be someone she's not. Emma thought about Derek, about how much of herself she'd contorted to fit his needs. I spent 3 years trying to be the perfect wife for someone who was determined to be disappointed in me. Nothing I did was ever enough. His loss, Alexander said simply, and the certainty in his voice made Emma's throat tight. These morning conversations became the anchors of Emma's days, moments she looked forward to with an eagerness that probably should have alarmed her, but instead just felt right. And then there was Oliver. The boy had decided, with the absolute certainty of a 3-year-old, that Emma was his person. He followed her through the house during his free time, chattering about dinosaurs and space and the elaborate fantasy worlds he created with his toys. He insisted she read him stories during her lunch break, his small body pressed against her side, his finger pointing at words he was starting to recognize. You're teaching him to read, Susan observed one afternoon, approval warm in her voice. He's been resistant with me, but with you he tries. He's brilliant, Emma said, ruffling Oliver's dark curls. Aren't you, buddy? I'm smart like Daddy, Oliver announced proudly. But nicer. Emma and Susan both laughed, and Alexander, passing by, raised an eyebrow. Nicer than me? Is that what we're saying now? You're too serious, Oliver informed him matter-of-factly. Emma says I should smile more, so I'm telling you too. Smile more, Daddy. Alexander's lips twitched. I'll work on that. But he was smiling more, Emma noticed. The house felt lighter, warmer, like the frost that had settled over it since Caroline's departure was finally beginning to thaw. One rainy Saturday, Emma had started working some weekends for extra pay. She found Oliver in the playroom, surrounded by art supplies, looking frustrated. What's wrong, sweetheart? I'm making a picture for Mommy, he said, his lower lip trembling. But I can't remember what her smile looks like. The remember in my head isn't working. Emma's heart cracked. She knelt beside him, looking at the drawing. Stick figures, a woman with yellow hair, a house, a sun. That's a beautiful picture, she said gently. Your mommy will love it. But her smile is wrong. Oliver's eyes filled with tears. I can't remember. Why can't I remember? Emma pulled him into her lap, feeling his small body shake with sobs. She looked up to find Alexander in the doorway, his face stricken. Sometimes our brains store feelings instead of pictures, Emma said softly. Maybe you can't remember exactly what her smile looks like, but you remember how it made you feel. That's even more special. Really? Oliver hiccuped. Really? And you know what? When you see your mommy next week, you can give her this picture and make new memories. Then your brain will have a fresh remember. Oliver considered this, then nodded against her shoulder. Okay. Will you help me finish it? Of course I will. They spent the next hour working on the drawing together, Oliver narrating an elaborate story about the stick figures while Emma added details. Alexander watched from the doorway, and when Oliver finally ran off to show Susan his completed masterpiece, he stepped into the room. Thank you, he said quietly, for knowing what to say. I would have fumbled through that. You're doing a great job with him, Emma said, standing and brushing off her jeans. He's happy, secure, loved. That's everything. He adores you. Emma felt heat rise in her cheeks. He's easy to adore. So are you. The words hung in the air between them, weighted with meaning neither of them was quite ready to examine. Emma's breath caught, and she saw Alexander's expression shift, surprise at his own words, then something that looked like fear. I should. Emma gestured vaguely toward the door. I have laundry to fold. Emma. Alexander's voice stopped her. I don't know how to do this. Do what?
This.
Whatever this is. Feeling things I'm not supposed to feel for someone who works for me. Someone who's rebuilding her life and doesn't need my complications. Someone who probably sees me as just her employer and I'm reading things into conversations that aren't there. Emma's heart was hammering. You're not reading things into conversations. No.
No.
She turned to face him fully. But you're right about the complications. I work for you. Oliver is your son. I'm still piecing together who I am after Derek. And you're still broken, Alexander finished. I'm still broken from Caroline. I was going to say healing. We're both healing. They looked at each other across the playroom, the air between them charged with possibility and danger in equal measure. We should be careful, Emma said finally. We should, Alexander agreed. Neither of them moved. I should go fold that laundry. You should. Emma walked past him, felt the electricity when her arm brushed his, heard his sharp intake of breath that matched her own. This was dangerous. This was complicated. This was exactly what she shouldn't want. But she did want it. She wanted him. Wanted this feeling of being seen, being valued, being something more than useless. That night, Emma lay awake in Maya's spare room, staring at the ceiling, trying to talk herself out of feelings that seemed determined to grow despite all logic. You're falling for him, Maya said, appearing in the doorway with 2 glasses of wine. Don't even try to deny it. I can see it all over your face every time you come home. I'm not, it's not. Okay? Maybe a little, Emma admitted, accepting the wine. But it's stupid. He's my boss. He's a billionaire. I'm his housekeeper. This is every bad romance cliché rolled into one. Or, Maya said, settling on the end of the bed, it's 2 good people who've been hurt finding comfort in each other. What's wrong with that? Everything. Nothing. I don't know. Emma groaned. Maya, I just got divorced. I'm supposed to be finding myself, becoming independent, building a life that isn't defined by a man. And are you doing those things? Emma considered. She'd started taking online classes again, working toward finishing her degree. She'd opened a savings account and was steadily building toward getting her own apartment. She was seeing a therapist, working through the damage Derek had inflicted, learning to recognize her own worth. Yes, she said slowly. I am. Then loving someone, if that's what this is, doesn't diminish that. It doesn't make you less independent or less found. It just makes you human. Maya squeezed her hand. You're allowed to be happy, Em. You're allowed to want things. You're allowed to let people in. What if I'm wrong again? What if I'm seeing something that isn't there? What if you're right this time? Emma didn't have an answer for that. The next week, Alexander hired a company to install a home theater in the basement. Oliver wants to watch movies as a family, he explained to Emma, somewhat sheepishly. I thought maybe we could do movie nights. The three of us. If you'd like. As part of my job? Emma asked carefully. As part of... Alexander paused, seeming to struggle with words. As part of our lives. If you want to be. Emma thought about boundaries, about professionalism, about all the reasons this was a terrible idea. I'd like that, she heard herself say. Oliver was ecstatic. He spent the week planning their first movie night with the seriousness of a military strategist. Blankets, pillows, popcorn, juice boxes, his favorite stuffed animals all carefully arranged. Friday night arrived. Emma had changed out of her work clothes into jeans and a soft sweater, feeling nervous in a way that had nothing to do with work and everything to do with the way Alexander looked at her when she came downstairs. You look lovely, he said quietly, while Oliver was distracted with the popcorn machine. It's just jeans. It's not the jeans. They watched an animated movie about dragons, Oliver's choice, sprawled on the oversized sectional. Oliver insisted on sitting between them, but halfway through the movie, he crawled onto Emma's lap and fell asleep, his small body heavy and trusting. He never does this with anyone else, Alexander said softly, watching his son sleep. Not even with Caroline when she visits. Emma stroked Oliver's curls, feeling her heart expand to impossible dimensions. He's special. So are you. The movie played on, but Emma wasn't watching anymore. She was acutely aware of Alexander beside her, of the way his hand rested on the cushion between them, mere inches from hers. Of the way he looked at her when he thought she wasn't paying attention. Of the way she looked back. When the movie ended and Oliver needed to be carried to bed, Alexander lifted his son gently. Emma followed, unable to stop herself, watching as Alexander tucked Oliver in with practiced tenderness. Good night, buddy, Alexander whispered, pressing a kiss to Oliver's forehead. Night, Daddy. Night, Emma, Oliver mumbled, already half asleep. Good night, sweet boy, Emma whispered back. In the hallway, with Oliver's bedroom door closed behind them, Alexander and Emma stood in the dim light, neither quite ready to say goodnight. This is dangerous, Emma said quietly. I know. I don't want to mess this up. Any of this. The job, Oliver, what we're building. Neither do I. Alexander's hand came up, hesitating near her face before gently tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. But I can't stop thinking about you. About us. About what this could be if we were brave enough to try. Emma's breath caught. Alexander. You don't have to answer now. I just needed you to know that this isn't one-sided, that you're not imagining things. His hand lingered against her cheek. Take your time. I'll wait. We'll figure it out together. He stepped back, putting professional distance between them again, and Emma felt the loss of his warmth like a physical ache. Good night, Emma. Good night, Alexander. She drove home through the quiet streets, her heart racing, her mind spinning, every nerve in her body alive with possibility. Maybe Maya was right. Maybe she was allowed to want this. Maybe she was allowed to be happy. Maybe, just maybe, broken things could heal, and sometimes they could heal together. 3 weeks after that first movie night, Emma's carefully constructed life began to unravel, not because of anything Alexander did, not because of falling in love with Oliver, but because Derek refused to let her go. It started with text messages. Apologies first, then accusations, then pleading, cycling through emotions like a slot machine looking for the combination that would make Emma respond. She blocked his number. He got a new one.
She blocked that too.
He started emailing. Then he showed up at the mansion. Emma was in the garden with Oliver, helping him hunt for worms, a recent obsession, when she heard the commotion at the front gate. Derek's voice, slurred and angry, demanding to see his wife. Ex-wife, Emma muttered, her stomach twisting with dread. She scooped Oliver into her arms. Come on, buddy. Let's go inside. But we didn't find the big worm yet. We'll find it later. I promise. She carried Oliver into the house, setting him down in the playroom with Susan before heading toward the front of the house, where she could hear Alexander's voice, calm but firm, and Derek's getting increasingly agitated. Right to see her. She's my wife. She's your ex-wife, Alexander corrected, standing in the open doorway, his body blocking Derek's entry. And she's made it clear she doesn't want contact with you. Who the hell are you? Her new boyfriend? That's perfect, Em. Real classy. Moving on to your rich boss. That's enough. Alexander's voice went cold. You need to leave.
Now.
Or I'll call the police. Emma. Derek shouted past Alexander. Emma, come out here. Don't hide behind your sugar daddy. Emma stepped into view, fury overriding her fear. Leave, Derek. You have no right to be here. No right to contact me. We're done. Derek's face twisted with rage and something else. Pain, maybe, or the shadow of the person he might have been if he hadn't let bitterness consume him. I made a mistake, okay?
I'm sorry.
Baby, please just talk to me.
Give me another chance.
I'll do better, I swear. You've been saying that for 3 years, Emma said, her voice steady despite her shaking hands. And it was never true. You didn't make a mistake, Derek. You made a choice. You chose to tear me down every single day until I finally believed I was as worthless as you kept telling me I was. Well, guess what? I'm done believing that. I'm done letting you define me. You're nothing without me. Derek's voice cracked. You're just a maid. A failure who couldn't even. She's brilliant, Alexander cut in, his voice hard as steel. She's kind, talented, and one of the strongest people I've ever met. And you're a small, bitter man who can't stand that she's better off without you. Derek lunged forward, but Alexander was faster, sidestepping and firmly pushing him back. 2 security guards Emma hadn't even noticed appeared, taking Derek by the arms. Let me go. Emma, please. Don't contact me again, Emma said, her voice breaking. Don't call, don't text, don't show up. It's over, Derek. Accept it. She turned and walked back into the house on trembling legs, barely making it to the kitchen before her knees gave out. She sank onto the floor, back against the cabinets, trying to breathe through the panic attack that was clawing at her chest. Footsteps. Then Alexander was there, kneeling in front of her, his hands gentle on her shoulders. Look at me, he said softly. Emma, look at me. You're safe.
He's gone.
You're safe. I'm sorry, she gasped. I'm so sorry I brought my mess here, to your home, around Oliver. Stop. You didn't bring anything.
He did.
And he's gone now. I've instructed security. He won't get past the gate again. I should quit. I should go. This is too much. Don't you dare. Alexander's hands cupped her face, forcing her to meet his eyes. Don't you dare let him make you run. You belong here, Emma. Oliver needs you. He paused, something raw and vulnerable crossing his face. I need you. Emma's breath caught. Alexander. I know the timing is terrible. I know you're rebuilding and I'm still a mess, and this is complicated in every possible way. But I'm falling for you, Emma. Have been since that day in my office when you cried and Oliver climbed into your lap, and I saw how brave you were, how real. How you didn't hide your pain, you just felt it and kept going. I'm broken, Emma whispered.
So am I.
But maybe. Alexander's thumb brushed away a tear on her cheek. Maybe we can be broken together. Maybe that's how this works. What about Oliver? What if this doesn't work out, and we hurt him? What if it does work out? What if we're brave enough to try, and it's everything we've both been looking for? Emma closed her eyes, feeling the weight of possibility and fear in equal measure. I'm scared. Me too. I don't want to be someone's employee and someone's girlfriend at the same time. That power dynamic. Then don't be my employee anymore. Alexander's voice was steady, certain.
Quit.
I'll give you 6 months' salary as severance. You can finish your degree, get your own place, build your life exactly the way you want it. And we can date.
Properly.
Like normal people who met and fell for each other. That's too much money. I can't accept. It's not enough, Alexander insisted. Emma, you've brought life back into this house. You've helped Oliver heal from Caroline leaving. You've helped me remember what it feels like to want to come home, to look forward to tomorrow. That's worth more than money could ever measure. Emma opened her eyes, finding his gray ones inches away, intense and vulnerable and hopeful all at once. What if I mess this up? She whispered. What if I'm not good at this? What if? What if we figure it out together? Later, Emma would remember this as the moment. The moment she chose to be brave. The moment she decided that healing didn't mean shutting everyone out. It meant learning to let the right people in. Okay, she breathed. Okay, let's try. Alexander's smile was like sunrise, slow, warm, transformative. Yeah, but we're doing this slow. For Oliver's sake and for ours. And if at any point it's not working, then we'll figure it out, Alexander promised. Together. They sat on the kitchen floor like that for a long moment, foreheads touching, breathing the same air, both terrified and exhilarated by what they'd just decided. Emma? Oliver's small voice came from the doorway. Why are you and Daddy sitting on the floor? Emma laughed, the sound breaking through the tension. We're having an important talk. On the floor? Sometimes the best talks happen in unexpected places, Alexander said, standing and offering Emma his hand. She took it, letting him pull her to her feet, and the feel of his hand in hers felt like a promise. Oliver studied them with those two wise eyes. Are you going to be my Emma forever now? Not just my cleaning Emma? Emma's heart clenched. Would you like that? Yes, Oliver said simply, then launched himself at her legs, hugging her fiercely. I love you, Emma. Over Oliver's head, Emma met Alexander's eyes and saw her own overwhelmed emotion reflected back at her. I love you too, Oliver, she whispered, because it was true, had been true probably since that first day when he decided she understood dragons. That night, after Oliver was in bed, Emma and Alexander sat in his home office, the same office where she'd broken down months ago, and wrote out her official resignation. It felt strange, significant, like closing one door and opening another. I'll work through the end of the month, Emma said. Give you time to find a replacement. Margaret already has 3 candidates lined up, Alexander admitted. She's very efficient. She knows I'm an idiot in love who's been useless at hiding it. Her words, not mine. Emma laughed. Everyone could tell? Apparently. Susan said she was taking bets on when I'd finally make a move. And she won. She won. Alexander's smile faded into something more serious. Are you sure about this? Really sure? Because once we do this, once we're actually together, there's no pretending it didn't happen if it doesn't work out. I'm sure I want to try, Emma said carefully. I'm sure that what I feel for you and for Oliver is real. The rest? We'll figure it out as we go. Alexander reached across the desk, lacing his fingers with hers. I haven't felt this hopeful in years. It's terrifying. Good terrifying or bad terrifying? The best kind. They sat like that, hands intertwined, until Oliver appeared in the doorway in his pajamas, dragging his favorite blanket. I had a bad dream, he said, his lower lip trembling. Alexander immediately stood, moving to scoop up his son. Want to tell me about it? Emma left. She went away like mommy and didn't come back. Emma's throat closed. She knelt down to Oliver's level, gently taking his small hands in hers. Oliver, I'm not going anywhere. I promise. Your mommy left because she needed to find what makes her happy, and that's okay. But I'm staying because being here with you and your daddy makes me happy. Do you understand? Promise for real? Not the kind of promise that breaks. Promise for real, Emma said, holding out her pinky. The forever kind. Oliver linked his pinky with hers, then threw his arms around her neck. Okay, I believe you. As Alexander carried Oliver back to bed, Emma followed, and somehow they all ended up in Oliver's room. Emma sitting on the edge of the bed, Alexander in the rocking chair, all of them reading stories until Oliver fell asleep mid-sentence. "This," Alexander whispered, looking at his sleeping son, and then at Emma. "This is what I want. This feeling. This family." "Me too," Emma whispered back. They stood to leave, but Oliver's sleepy voice stopped them. "Can Emma stay for breakfast? And lunch? And dinner? And forever?" Alexander's hand found Emma's in the darkness. "I think we can arrange that." "Good," Oliver mumbled. "Love you both." In the hallway, with Oliver's door closed softly behind them, Emma and Alexander looked at each other with wonder and fear and hope all tangled together. "We're really doing this," Emma said. "We're really doing this," Alexander confirmed. And then, finally, inevitably, perfectly, he kissed her, soft and careful and full of promise. When they pulled apart, both of them were smiling. "That was nice," Emma said, her cheeks flushed. "Just nice." "Okay, amazing. Incredible. Everything I didn't know I needed." "Better." Alexander grinned, and Emma saw the carefree joy that he must have had before life got complicated, before divorce and heartbreak, before he forgot how to hope. Maybe they were both finding their way back to who they used to be. Or maybe they were becoming who they were always meant to be. Either way, they were doing it together. 6 months later, Emma stood in the living room of her new apartment, a sunny one-bedroom in a safe neighborhood, with hardwood floors and a window seat perfect for reading, and felt like she'd finally arrived somewhere that mattered. Not arrived at a place, exactly, but arrived at herself. The months since officially leaving the Thorne household as an employee had been transformative. She'd thrown herself into finishing her degree, taking classes at night while working part-time at a local bookstore during the day. The bookstore owner, Mrs. Chun, was teaching her about business management with an eye toward Emma maybe running her own shop someday. "You have an eye for what people need," Mrs. Chun had said. "And the heart to care about giving it to them. That's rare." Emma had also been seeing her therapist weekly, unpacking years of damage Derek had inflicted, learning to recognize her own worth independent of anyone else's opinion. Some days were harder than others, days when doubt crept in, when Derek's voice echoed in her head, when she caught herself shrinking to fit some imagined expectation. But then she'd have dinner with Alexander and Oliver, and Alexander would look at her like she hung the moon, and Oliver would tell her about his day with such enthusiasm that it was impossible not to feel valued.
Loved.
Essential. They'd taken it slow, just as Emma insisted. Real dates, movies, restaurants, walks in the park with Oliver running ahead chasing pigeons. Family dinners where they cooked together, Oliver helping by making more mess than progress. Quiet evenings after Oliver went to bed, talking about everything and nothing, learning each other's rhythms and quirks and broken places. Alexander had his own healing to do. There were nights when he'd withdraw, when the ghost of Caroline and his failed marriage would shadow his eyes. Times when he'd apologize for not being better at this, for being too cautious or too intense or too damaged. "We're both learning," Emma would remind him. "Neither of us has to be perfect." They'd had their first real fight 3 months in, something stupid about Emma feeling like Alexander was spending too much money on her, about power dynamics and independence and pride all tangled up together. They'd both said things they regretted, both retreated to lick their wounds. Oliver had been the one to fix it, appearing at Emma's bookstore with a drawing of the 3 of them holding hands. "You and Daddy are being silly," he'd announced. "Love is more important than fighting." Out of the mouths of babes. They'd apologized, talked it through, established boundaries and expectations. And they'd come out stronger. Now, standing in her new apartment, her space, earned with her own money, decorated with her own choices, Emma felt ready for what came next.
The doorbell rang.
Emma opened it to find Alexander and Oliver, the latter clutching a small wrapped box with barely contained excitement. "We brought a housewarming present," Oliver announced, pushing past Emma into the apartment. "It's from both of us, but mostly me because I picked it." "Oliver, let Emma at least say hello before you bowl her over," Alexander laughed, leaning in to kiss Emma softly. "Hi. Hi yourself." Emma's smile was radiant. "Come in." I know it's not much. It's perfect, Alexander said, looking around with genuine appreciation. It's you. That makes it perfect. They spent the afternoon helping Emma unpack boxes, Oliver organizing her books by color instead of author, Alexander assembling furniture with the focused intensity he brought to everything. It was domestic and comfortable and right. As evening approached, they ordered pizza and ate it sitting on Emma's new couch, a second-hand find she'd lovingly restored, while Oliver chattered about his day at preschool. I told everyone about Emma's new apartment, Oliver said through a mouthful of pepperoni. Miss Sarah asked if you were my new mommy. I said you're just Emma, and that's better because I got to choose you. Emma's eyes filled with tears.
Oh, Oliver.
Did I say something wrong? Oliver looked worried.
No, sweet boy.
You said something very, very right. After dinner, after Oliver dozed off on the couch and Alexander carried him to Emma's car to drive him home, Alexander returned to the apartment alone. Emma was washing dishes, and he came up behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist. I love seeing you here, he said softly. In your own space. So proud of yourself, you're practically glowing. It feels good, Emma admitted, leaning back against his chest. Like I'm finally me again. Or maybe me for the first time. I have something to ask you, Alexander said, and something in his voice made Emma turn in his arms. He looked nervous, genuinely, endearingly nervous. And I want you to feel completely free to say no, to say it's too soon, to say whatever you need to say. Alexander, you're scaring me. I know we've only been officially together for 6 months. I know you just moved into this place. I know you're building your independence, and that's important, and I don't want to take that away. He took a breath. But I'm also completely, stupidly in love with you. And Oliver adores you. And I keep thinking about the future, about what I want it to look like, and every version includes you. Emma's heart was hammering. What are you saying? I'm saying. Alexander reached into his pocket, pulling out a small velvet box. Emma gasped. I'm saying I'd like you to marry me. Eventually. Not right now, I know that would be too fast. But maybe in a year?
2 years?
Whenever you're ready. I just want you to know that this isn't casual for me. That I'm in this completely. That I'm already planning forever with you. He opened the box, revealing a simple, elegant ring. Nothing ostentatious, nothing that screamed wealth, just beautiful in its understated grace. It was my grandmother's, Alexander said. The only marriage in my family that actually worked. 63 years together. She used to say that love wasn't about finding someone perfect, it was about finding someone you wanted to be imperfect with. Someone who made you want to be better while loving you exactly as you are. Emma was crying now, happy tears streaming down her face. That's beautiful. So, is that a someday yes? Because I can wait, Emma. However long you need. Emma looked at this man who had seen her at her lowest, who had given her space to heal, who had never once tried to fix her, but had simply walked beside her while she fixed herself. She thought about Oliver, about the life they were building together, about how much stronger she felt with them in it. It's a someday yes, she whispered. A definite, absolute, completely certain someday yes. Alexander's smile could have lit the city. He slipped the ring on her finger, a perfect fit, and pulled her into a kiss that tasted like promise and hope and home. We'll tell Oliver in the morning, Alexander said when they finally pulled apart. He's going to lose his mind. Good losing his mind or bad losing his mind? Definitely good. He's been asking when you're going to officially be part of the family since month 2. They stood in Emma's kitchen, swaying slightly, the ring catching the light, both of them grinning like fools. I never thought I'd be here, Emma said softly. 6 months ago, I was broken.
Lost.
Convinced I was useless. You were never useless. You just needed to remember your worth. You helped me remember. No, Alexander corrected gently. You remembered yourself. I just got to watch. The next morning, when they told Oliver, his reaction was exactly as predicted, pure, unbridled joy. Emma's going to be my real family now, forever and ever. Forever and ever, Emma confirmed, kneeling to his level. Oliver threw his arms around her neck with such force they both nearly toppled over. This is the best day of my whole life. Better than my birthday. Better than Christmas. Even better than when you got the dinosaur excavation kit? Alexander teased. Even better than that. Oliver pulled back, his face serious. Will I call you Mommy now? Emma's breath caught. She looked at Alexander, who gave her an encouraging nod. This was her call. You can call me whatever feels right to you, Emma said carefully. Mommy, Emma, something else entirely. There's no rush to decide. And you already have a mommy who loves you. I'm not trying to replace her. Oliver thought about this with his characteristic intensity. Can I have two? A mommy Caroline who visits and a mommy Emma who stays. If that's what you want, sweet boy. Okay, then that. Oliver nodded, satisfied. Can we have pancakes to celebrate? And just like that, the biggest moment of their lives was followed by the mundane joy of making breakfast together. Oliver standing on a stool to help stir batter, Alexander burning the first batch, Emma laughing so hard she couldn't breathe. This, Emma thought, watching her future husband attempt to flip a pancake and instead launching it onto the ceiling while Oliver dissolved into giggles. This is what happiness looks like. Not perfect. Not simple. Not without scars from the past or worries about the future. But real.
Honest.
Full of love and laughter, and the promise of tomorrow. The wedding took place 18 months later in the garden of the Thorne Mansion, under an arch woven with Emma's favorite flowers. It was small, just close friends and family, because both Emma and Alexander had learned that the size of the celebration mattered less than the depth of the commitment. Oliver was the ring bearer, taking his job with such seriousness that he stopped the ceremony midway to inform the officiant that he was doing it wrong. You forgot to say that Mommy Emma makes the best cookies, Oliver said sternly. That's important information. The guests laughed, and the officiant gamely added, and let the record show that Emma makes excellent cookies. When Alexander and Emma exchanged vows, there wasn't a dry eye in the garden. I promise to love you on your hardest days, Alexander said, his voice thick with emotion. To remember that healing isn't linear, and that's okay. To choose us every single day, even when it's difficult. To build a life with you that honors who we've been while celebrating who we're becoming. Emma's vows were just as heartfelt. I promise to trust you with my broken pieces. To let you love me even when I don't love myself. To be brave enough to stay when things get hard. To build a home with you, not just a house, but a real home where imperfect people love each other perfectly. The kiss that sealed their marriage was tender and sweet and earned enthusiastic applause from Oliver, who announced to everyone, now we're a forever family. At the reception, Emma danced with Oliver, who stood on her feet as she swayed to the music. Are you happy, Mommy Emma? He asked, looking up at her with those gray eyes so like his father's. Happier than I ever thought possible, Emma answered honestly.
Good.
You deserve happy. Emma's throat closed with love for this boy who had run into her arms when she was broken and had somehow helped put her back together. Later, she danced with Alexander, and he whispered against her ear. Thank you. For what? For being brave. For trying. For letting us love you. For teaching me that second chances are real. Thank you for seeing me, Emma whispered back. The real me, when I couldn't see myself. They swayed together as the sun set over the garden, turning everything golden, and Emma thought about the journey that had brought her here. From the apartment where Derek had broken her, to the mansion where she'd hidden her tears, to this moment where she stood surrounded by love. She wasn't the same woman who had cried on that bus stop bench 18 months ago. That woman had been shattered, yes, but she'd also been brave enough to walk away from what was killing her, strong enough to rebuild, and wise enough to recognize love when it came looking for her in unexpected places. What are you thinking? Alexander asked. That I'm not useless, Emma said. The word Derek had used to hurt her now transformed into a declaration of her own worth. I never was. It just took me losing everything to remember that. You're extraordinary, Alexander said. And I'm going to spend the rest of my life proving it to you. You already do, Emma said, reaching up to kiss him. Every single day. Oliver ran over, crashing into their legs and demanding group hugs, and they stood there, the three of them, a family built from broken pieces that had somehow formed something beautiful, and Emma finally understood what healing looked like. It looked like this: laughter and love and second chances. It looked like a little boy who understood dragons and a man who understood heartbreak. It looked like having the courage to try again, to trust again, to believe that even though the past had hurt, the future could still be magnificent. Emma had hidden her tears from the billionaire that first terrible day, trying to maintain professional boundaries, trying to hold herself together. But he'd seen them anyway, and instead of looking away, he'd stayed. They'd both stayed. And in staying, in choosing each other day after day, they'd built something neither of them had thought possible: a home. A family. A love that was real and messy and perfect in its imperfection. Forever, Oliver declared, squeezing both their hands. Forever, Emma and Alexander echoed, and it wasn't just a promise, it was a destination they'd finally reached together. Home.